EP Magazine's annual Summer Fun issue has articles that focuses on fun activities, as well as helping reduce or avoid academic or behavioral regression over the summer. The disruption of familiar routines, environments, and limited access to school-based and other support services can be difficult for some children, especially those with special needs. Read it today at www.epmagazine.com.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of REITs Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every REIT you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's REITsAcrossAmerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Suicide is preventable, and each of us has a role to play in suicide prevention.
Suicide is complex. There is no single cause.
And it's not always a mental health issue. It could be loss of a job or home, financial or relationship issues, pain, or leaving the military.
Suicide does not discriminate. It affects all ages, races, and genders, veterans or not.
If you know a veteran who is struggling, connect with them. Let them know help is available.
There is quick and easy access to services in times of crisis.
Dial 988, then press 1. Talking about it is okay.
Don't keep it inside. Don't be ashamed. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis, Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hoobazoo Network. You can find out more on hoobazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, Kason Shaving Company, Exceptional Parent Magazine, and Black Cat Designs. Rolling right through the year, it's been a great half of the year so far, and I'm always excited to meet people coming into the podcast space, people doing amazing things in the podcast space, and my next guest is no exception. I'd like to introduce Marine Corps veteran David Willis Jr. of the Homefront Sitrep Podcast to Oscar Mike Radio. David, welcome. I can't wait to dig into everything we got to talk about.
Well, thanks for having me, Travis. It's one of those things, my friend. Let me tell you.
Well, it's a great big sandbox, this podcast world. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm a Marine. You're a Marine, and I don't know about you, David. Do you feel the spirit of Chesty Puller amongst us right now?
Always. He's always here.
Him
And Carlos Hathcott.
I still every now and then I'll go, good night, Chesty Puller, wherever you are, and hope he answers me. So the spirit of Chesty is with us. We're both Marines, and we're talking like we're in the 5-ton going back to get chow from Main Side. And we're doing that. How does David Willis Jr. get started in podcasting? do the Marine Corps and all that stuff, why don't you just start at the beginning and kind of tell us who you are?
All right. So my name's David Willis. My friends call me Willis. I grew up in Bardstown, Kentucky. Every morning I'd wake up and go to school and smell sour mash whiskey, as they're cooking it up there. And um, my granddaddy, when I was probably maybe 5, 6, he told my mom and everybody that I would be the one to go in the military. And as I was growing up, I played football all the way from little league all the way to high school. And when I got into high school, I started really researching, the different branches out there, your Army, Navy, Coast Guard, everywhere. And I wanted to be the best because I always pushed myself to be better than the day before. And that's something that I've always done. That was something that was instilled in me when I was young, to always be better than the day before. And I wanted to go to the branch at that time, which is still current today, the best branch out there. And so I started looking to the Marines. I had 2 friends that joined, or actually 3 friends that joined right before I did. And I was like, all right, that's what I want to do. So I talked to Gunny Groach, who was a recruiter at the time. I was like, all right, I want to join the Marines. I want to be infantry. That's what I want to do. I don't care about any other job. I said, but I wanted to be infantry. And so I took the ASVAB, scored a 98, and he was like, you want to go infantry? I was like, yes, sir. That's where I want to go. I said, I want to be the best of the best, and and infantry is the backbone of the Marine Corps. I said, that's where I want to go. And so my senior year of high school, I was short a half a credit of graduating. It was an elective class. So I was going through summer school, and Gunny Groach calls me up one day. He goes, hey, we're going to ship you out next week. And I'm like, well, I don't have my high school diploma yet. I'm working. He goes, don't worry about it. We'll get it to you when you get out of School of Infantry and you get to your main unit. He said, just tell them that you're on a high school SIT program. I was like, okay, sounds good to me. So, I go down to Paris Island, 1st Battalion, and I was there maybe a week in the holding platoon before everybody arrived and everything, and they sent us over to our platoon, and went through, and people say that it was hard, and don't get me wrong, there was things that were hard about boot camp. But once you got through that initial phase, and you got into the rifle range, and after you got done with the crucible, it was cakewalk after you got done with the crucible, because you're considered a Marine once you get your EGA right after the crucible. So, but yeah, no, I loved it. So I went in 90.
Just real quick, people ask me, what was the hardest part of boot camp? And I stand by this. The gas chamber to me was absolutely the worst part, because it was brief, it was short, but it really emphasized just how powerless you were against something you couldn't see. And it really could mess with you if you didn't follow the rules.
Yeah. So the gas chamber sucked. I hated the swim qual. I hated that. I mean, it was, trying to get air in your freaking trousers. That was something that was hard. I mean, I love swimming, but swimming with gear on and then taking your pants off and putting air in to get a life jacket out of them. That was, to me, that was the hardest. The crucible, I think the crucible was hard at the time, especially the 72 hours of sleep deprivation that we had to endure during that. And then I think it was a 10-mile hike back at the end when you go back to the Iwo Jima Memorial and get your EGA. That was really, really probably the hardest thing I did in boot camp was doing the crucible and then marching back, that 10 miles back, because I'm bow-legged and pigeon-toed, and I got short legs. So humping with a 100-pound rucksack on my back was not fun at all.
You weren't humping, David. You were running.
Yeah, we were pretty much running. Yeah, it was crazy, but I loved it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I mean, I was on another podcast, and she asked me, she goes, would you take that oath again? I was like, in a heartbeat, I would do it again.
Is that Tabitha?
Yeah, Miss Tabitha. Yeah.
That was a great podcast. She had me on it. She did a really great job.
Oh, she's awesome. I love her. Matter of fact, she's on the tip of the spear that we do. So you'll get to see her on the tip of the spear as long as the kids are healthy, because I know she had some issues with her kids on a few of them. So,
Well,
uh,
that's the Oath We Took podcast. I will put the link in the Oscar Mike Rio show post because she talks to Marines and she did a great job. And Tabitha, hope you're watching this, and we respect what you're doing. Super
oh
fun.
yeah, I love Tabitha Semper Fi for sure.
So
So,
you get through boot camp and you go into infantry school. How is that?
I went to School of Infantry at Camp Geiger. It, it was different because, going through boot camp, you're so used to the drill instructors yelling at you constantly. And then when you get to the School of Infantry, they're a little bit more laxed, but they're still in your face too at times. And then you had your weekends off. And for me, I had friends that were already, stationed at Camp Lejeune and living off base. So on the weekends, I had time to go decompress at their house, and hang out with friends from back home. And so for me, I love School of Infantry, just because it taught me everything that I needed to know to be a successful infantryman in the Marine Corps. And with the land nap and everything else that we did there, it was fun.
You go into active duty, you go to the fleet, as they say. Were there any times in the fleet where you're like, I still am glad I did this. This is a good idea. Or was the fleet different? Because it's really amazing. Some people get to the fleet who've had great boot camps, great MOS schools, and are like, wait a minute, you're truly like out in the world.
Yeah.
And some people who can just barely crawl through boot camp really succeed in the fleet. And some people just kind of, find their way. I mean, how was your fleet experience like?
So fleet experience for me, we started off with a bang because I left School of Infantry, went straight to Second Battalion, Eighth Marines Golf Company, and within 20 days we were deploying to Bridgeport, California for cold weather training up in the Sahara Nevadas. And transition, when I got to the unit, they didn't do a whole lot of picking on the new guys uh at first. Um so it was a pretty smooth transition. I met some friends, and luckily I had some friends that I went to boot camp with, went to School of Infantry with. So I already knew people that were in my platoon, in my company. And so it kind of made the transition from School of Infantry to the fleet seamless. Now, when we were in Bridgeport, we had a company commander, Captain Schweitzer was his name. We were doing a land nav course up in the mountains. We were deployed up in the mountains, and we were told to fall out onto the road. So we were falling out into formation, and the company commander, the platoon commanders, platoon sergeants were all having a meeting. And then during that meeting, he goes, "All right, we're in a semi-tactical environment, so no smoking." So he tells this in that meeting while we're falling out onto the road. We have no word of what he's saying in this meeting yet. So we're up smoking. There's like 6 or 7 of us smoking at outside of formation, but we were, just smoking because we were waiting for whatever to be called up or whatever. And he gets done with his meeting, and he walks straight up to where we're at on the road. He writes all 6 of us up for disobeying a superior commissioned officer, even though we hadn't got word from our platoon commander or platoon sergeant yet. So I got an NJP within the first 20 days or first 30 days of being in fleet. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Because I'm like, what did I do? I did not know anything. And after that, it was, it wasn't too bad after that. But I loved with 2-8. I did a lot of deployments with Greece. I went to Greece, Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I went to God, where else did we went all kinds of places, and it was fun. So yeah, It was definitely fun. I would, like I said, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
So you do it, you're not doing it again. You do it and you get out. I always ask everybody, what was your transition experience like, being in that environment, then having to get out and go back home?
Well, so I got out August of 2001. I was on 30 days terminal leave. September 1st happens, and then I'm out. I'm working in a factory at the time in Barstown back home, and I'm on lunch break. September 11th, I'm on lunch break. As soon as that happens, I call my mom. I was like, "Hey," I said, "Be ready." I said, because her address was still my home on record because I hadn't changed it to where I was living at the time. And I said, "Be ready for that Western Union." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm infantry. I'm going back into the Marine Corps." Uh, she goes, "No, you're not." And I was like, "I bet you I do." And sure enough, about a month later, the Western Union shows up at the door, and I get recalled back in. It was the first time the Marine Corps ever activated the individual ready reserves, and so I had a report date. I had to make sure all my uniforms were up to code and everything was good to go. Um, I get on a flight from Louisville to back to um, Camp Lejeune or Jacksonville, and report to a mobilization support battalion and go through the process of getting all new gear issued and everything. Um, and they're like, "All right, well, we're gonna get you guys spun up and we're gonna send you over to Iraq." Um, and so yeah, that was pretty much my transition. Then I got out in 2004 the last time, and um transition for me, it was a little rough the last time, because I lost that sense of camaraderie. I lost that sense of purpose. Like most vets out there, when they get out of the military, they lose that sense of purpose. They lose that sense of camaraderie that we built with our brothers and sisters in the Marine Corps, and it was a struggle, because the stuff that I seen in Haiti as an 18-year-old, um, no, nobody, I don't wish that on any American, or any human to see the stuff that we saw in Haiti. And so yeah, the second time was really rough because, it set in completely because I knew I was done. Now, of course, I was in the process of talking to an armor recruiter as well because I was going to do 20 years. That was my plan, was to do 20. So I was talking to an armor recruiter, and I had it set up. I was going to go Germany for 5 years. I was going to go change my MOS from infantry to telecommunications, $50,000 enlistment bonus, go from E5 to E6, and I was ready to rock and roll. That was my plan, was to join the army and finish my 20 in the military, and um, they denied me.
Wow.
And I don't, after having two honorable discharges, the same doctor who let me join the Marine Corps the first time denied me from joining the army and said, "Because you had asthmatic symptoms as a child, we can't let you join the army." And I'm like, "Doc, here's your signature on my original orders, and you're telling me that I can't go in the army." And he goes, "Yeah, I can't let you go." So we fought it all the way up to a lieutenant colonel over recruiting, and still no budging. Now, this is at the time where the military changed their tattoo policy, where if you had tattoos below your elbows, they wasn't letting you re-enlist. Well, I had the big Grim Reaper on my forearm, and I want to say that's the reason why they wouldn't let me join the army. And they just come up with some excuse of having asthmatic symptoms as a child as an excuse, because I was never diagnosed with asthma. I had bronchitis, but never had asthma. And so I think it was just an excuse. But hindsight's 2020. 20 years later, I look back and I'm like, all right, my current wife, because I was stupid as a Marine, I got married early in the Marine Corps, and I'll tell you that story in a minute. But my current wife told me that if I went back into the military, that me and her would no longer be together because she couldn't be a military spouse. So 20 years later, I wouldn't still be married to the same woman. I wouldn't have two kids that are straight A students. Both of them are planning on joining the military. One's going Air Force, one's going Army. Um, and I wouldn't be where I am today doing what I do and doing what I love. And um, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at, brother.
Do you want to talk about the marriage? Because,
I can talk about it.
well, I say that just because, I remember my staff sergeant and my captain, like, you sure you want to get married? You
Yeah.
sure this is the best thing for you to do? Oh, yes, sir. I know exactly all about this. I'm good. And, it really changed the arc of your life, whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah, it did. It really did change the arc of my life. And I thank God for putting me through that trial and tribulation early on in life instead of later on in life. And the reason I say that is, all right, so um I was living off base. I was sharing a house with my doc, my corpsman. He was one of my best friends. We were sharing a place, and it was right up the street from a friend from high school, right up from their house. And they introduced me to this lady. She was from Chicago, south side of Chicago. Um, so she was working as a cashier at the local Kroger, which was maybe about 2 miles from where we lived at. Um, Me and her started talking, and we wound up dating for about a year and a half. Now, granted, being infantry, I was always deployed. I might be stateside, but I was either in the field for 7 days or 11 days. So we dated for about a year and a half, and um we decided to finally get married, and I was like, all right. So October 1st of 1999, we got married. Um, I brought her home for Thanksgiving that year in November to back to Kentucky. And as we were driving back to North Carolina, she says, I'll never come back to Kentucky. I knew it was kind of over right then, because she said she would never come back to Kentucky. So we get back, and December 1st comes around. Well, this was our next deployment to my second time in Bridgeport, California. So I'm deployed to Bridgeport. I come back early on the advance party, like 2 days early, to get everything set up and get gear and everything lined out and stuff, get the armory back up and running like we're supposed to. And I get done with doing everything what I'm supposed to do when I get back, and I never called her and told her that I was coming back early. I never called her. So I get back, I get in my car when I'm done with a day, stop at a flyer shop, get some flyers, stop and get a bottle get a bottle of Henny, and I drive down the street, man, and I turn off the main road into our road, and I got that gut feeling like something was wrong. I was like, man, something's not right. So I pull in the driveway, open the front door, and I hear music playing in the back bedroom. Walk down the hallway, and sure enough, she's in bed with a squid that I knew that was supposedly was her friend. So I just dropped what I had and turned around and walked out, got in my car, drove up to my buddy's house, and knocked on the door, and his wife Belinda answered the door, and she said, Dave, I gotta tell you something. I said, no, you don't. She goes, yeah, she's been cheating on you the whole time. And I was like, what do you mean the whole time? She goes, even when you were here and you were deployed in the field, she was cheating on you. I was like, why didn't you tell me that before you let me marry her?
Right.
Well, yeah. And they never did tell me. And I'm like, y'all should have told me this. Well, so I moved back on base the next day. I go in my first sergeant's office and tell first sergeant what was going on. And he goes, all right, we'll get you a barracks room. The BAQ that you're getting for housing, you still have to give it to her because you're married. I said, roger that, first sergeant. Never paid her a dime after that because she was cheating on me. I was like, fuck that. I ain't giving her shit. So yeah, and then as you know, I'm living back on base. My guys are going out to these strip clubs, right? There's a new strip club that just opened up. It is one you have to bring your own booze to because they haven't got a liquor license yet. So they're going out to this club. I'm on duty, they come back that night and they said, "Hey, Corporal Willis." I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" They said, "Does your wife work in a strip club?" I was like, "No, not that I know of. I'm getting separated." And they're like, "Well, we seen your wife. She's working as a stripper at a strip club." I was like, "You got to be fucking kidding me," you know? I mean, she was gorgeous. She was a gorgeous lady. I won't deny that, but um, come to find out, she was working in a strip club, but before I met her, she was previous a stripper at one of the other strip clubs in Jacksonville. And so, my wife and my kids now, they tease me all the time. They're like, "Oh, you're in love with the stripper," and they start singing the song. I'm like, "Get out of here."
You do all that and go through that. You get out, you return to some semblance of a civilian life. How did finding work for you once you got out and raising a family and being, like full-time married? It's not like, hey, you're going out in the field or on deployment for 6 months. Like you're full-time married, David.
Yeah. So, getting out full time, the second time, uh, I actually landed a job pretty quickly working at a pest control company up in Indiana, southern Indiana. So I was living in Louisville, and I had to drive, 30 minutes to get to the shop in the morning every morning. The wife, she was still in college, and so we didn't get married until November of 2005. After she graduated that year, we waited for her to get married, or for her to graduate before we got married. And then working during this process, I was working as a pest control company. I was actually trying to get on at the Louisville Metro Police Department because, unfortunately, being infantry, you're only trained to do so much out of the military. So my thing was, I'm gonna join the military or join the police force, work my way to SWAT, because that's where I wanted to go, was SWAT. And doing that process and then working full time. So I was relying kind of on my military because I was also going to college as well, and I got a degree in criminal justice. So I was twofold, being prior military, then going to college and get my criminal justice degree, and working 60 hours a week at a pest control company and taking online college courses. It sucked. It was really hard. I mean, I got to the point where I wasn't drinking anymore because the Marine Corps told me I was an alcoholic. That's a whole nother ball of wax as well. Because after my first wife, I caught her cheating on me. I went down a rabbit hole, uh, working and just being stressed out like every day. It was a downer, man. It really downed me. And I wasn't sleeping well, because of the night terrors that I got, my anxiety, my hypervigilance. But the night terrors are the worst. So yeah, that's kind of where that was. And that's what led me to doing volunteering for veteran service organizations and stuff like that.
So let's talk about that, because the Homefront Sitrep Podcast is your primary focus. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to U.S. Marine Corps veteran David Willis Jr., host of the Homefront Sitrep Podcast, that primarily focuses on veteran services organizations or nonprofits. And I was very interested. I've heard your show, and I'll have the link to the show in the Ask Mike Radio website post. I thought, when I heard you talk about this stuff, I'm like, yes, I've talked about nonprofit stuff before, but you really dig down into it
Yeah.
at a granular level that I think people need to hear. What started you in that path, and how'd you decide to focus on that for your podcast?
All right. So after getting out in 2004, I did a lot of volunteering with veteran service organizations here locally. And for me, those organizations that I volunteered with, being around other veterans and being able to um, participate in doing any kind of event, like going down and feeding the homeless veterans, or rebuilding or demoing a house and then rebuilding it and giving it to homeless veterans. That helped me therapeutic wise. It helped minimize the night terrors and stuff like that. And being around other veterans, it helped ease the hypervigilance and the anxiety. Um, and so finally I got asked to join a board of a veteran service organization, and I saw the inner workings of how the service organizations go. But then it turned out that the person that was running the organization wasn't doing it for the right reason. So I had to resign. And when I resigned, I said, I'm gonna find something that I can feel comfortable doing on my own. I didn't want to be involved with a veteran service organization or anything at that time. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do a podcast. So what I did, I bought the microphone, I bought the computer, I bought the cameras, I bought everything that I needed, and then it just sat here in the basement and sat here in the basement. And I had a good friend that started the show with me, that when I met her, she was a homeless vet. She was couch surfing. And the wife and I kind of took her under our wing and helped her get to where she, could have a house and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to do a podcast, I want you to come on, be my co-host, and we'll talk about whatever. And so I started researching all the veteran podcasters out there and what they were talking about. And what I realized was nobody was really focusing strictly on veteran service organizations. You had your big ones, your Wounded Warrior, your Mission 22, and those, and people would bring those guys on and talk about them and what they're doing. But nobody's looking at the grassroots mom and pop veteran service organizations from around the country. I live in Kentucky, in the middle of the country, and there's organizations in Florida that I never heard of. There's organizations in Virginia that I never heard of. There's organizations in Minnesota. So during my research, I was like, all right, that's where our focus is. That's where our focus is going to be on, is these mom and pop grassroots veteran service organizations that are doing it for the right reason. And when I say for the right reason, is because it's about the veterans. It's not about the founder of the organization building his public profile to, eventually run for office someday. It's about that organization helping veterans. And then what I do is, when I get down to the nitty gritty of it, is I go online and I look at their 1090s. I look at their Google reviews. I mean, I do a deep dive into each individual person on the board, and make sure that there's no negative comments on Google reviews. Make sure that their 1090 is legit. Make sure that everything is accounted for. And because a lot of organizations out there, they will get money, and say if you get money donated to you, and it's for, like, say if you have equine therapy and that money's supposed to go for equine therapy. Well, if you don't earmark that money for equine therapy, then you're actually violating the rules of a 501c3, because anytime that you receive a donation, that money is supposed to be earmarked for what they want it to go for, unless they don't specify, and then you can put it in your general fund. So when we do, I mean, literally, I do a deep dive into every organization, and it's crazy. And then I got friends, like retired gunnery sergeant Sam Deeds. He sent me 3 organizations the other day and said, hey, these people would be great for your show. And if somebody recommends them, then I don't do a deep dive. But if I'm just scouring Facebook or the internet, and I find a service organization, then I do my deep dive. And that's like, I've talked to Ed McLean, who's an Air Force veteran with Warrior to Racing. They do American endurance racing, and it's all veterans, from the low man on the totem pole all the way up to the crew chief. Everybody's a veteran, and they started that program. And I'm an adrenaline junkie myself. I love jumping out of airplanes and going fast. So it was a no-brainer for me to look into his organization and see what they were doing. And then you got like Nicholas Ron with Warriors Next Adventure up in Minnesota. He takes veterans on hikes. He takes veterans in the outdoors. And then you got Camp Hero, Kentucky. Rocco's a Navy veteran, and then he was a police officer, medically retired from the Navy, joined the police force, medically retired from the police force because a felon decided she wanted to try to run from him and ran him over. So he medically retired. And when he retired, he lost that camaraderie again because he lost it from getting out of the Navy. Then he lost it because now he can't work as a police officer. So he started Camp Hero, Kentucky, and they focus on veterans, first responders, and their families, and they take them up and do outdoor therapy. So yeah, we do, man. Like I said, we do a deep dive, and I've been doing it a little over. February 28th was a year. So yeah, little over a year we've been doing podcasting, and I love it, man.
So the idea for the Homefront Sitrep podcast came from there's no one really talking about nonprofits and VSOs specifically.
Yeah.
And in your experience, you've seen things that could be, red flags or warning signs that this is not a good nonprofit. But you also talk about on your show that there are things to look for. What are some of the things you look for that tells you, hey, you know what? These people really are solid. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I feel like, any money given to them is being given to right back to the veterans they serve.
Well, so one thing you can do is anybody can look up the 1090 and
The
see
1090 or the 990?
it might be a 990.
There's a 990 in and the 990.
It might be the 990. It's their
Okay.
financials, yeah.
Okay,
It's
okay.
990. I don't know why I'm saying 1090. But you can look at that, and then when you speak to the founder of the organization or the board members, and you listen to them talk, if the founder is saying me, then he's not doing it for the right reason. But if he's talking about his board and what his board and him are doing, then more than likely they're doing it for the right reason, and all the money is going back to where it needs to go to. But a lot of organizations pop up really quick. So you also need to look back in the track record and see how long they've been around, and then look and see if the board members are jumpers. And what I mean by jumpers is they jump from nonprofit to nonprofit to nonprofit. Usually that means they're not doing it for the right reason, because they're either not fitting in where they were at, or the one that they left was bad. So you can, and most of that's, public record. You can look and see where, in their bios and stuff like that, you could see where they've been. But yeah.
How important is a board to a nonprofit or veteran service organization? What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think the board is the most important, because for one, you need your checks and balances within a veteran service organization. You got your founder, your face. Your founder should be your face of the organization. Your board should be the one that's making all the decisions for the veteran service organization. Yes, the founder should have a little bit of say, but he's going to be impartial. He shouldn't get a vote on things, because it's his organization. Sure, he's going to be like, yeah, we want to do that, but that's where your board comes into play. Now you should have, your treasurer, your vice president, and however many board members you want to have. And then along with your treasurer, you need an outside source that's going to keep your books, that's non-partial, that doesn't have a dog in the fight. And the reason you have that bookkeeper outside of your treasurer is to make sure all your money's legit. So if that way, if IRS or whoever comes to audit you, you say, all right, let me get my my bookkeeper on here and with the treasurer, and then they can work out the details that way. But yeah, the board is the most, I think when it comes to a veteran service organization, the board is probably the most important part of it. And like I said, it's checks and balances. You don't want somebody you can have 5 people on a board, right? Or 6, because you want to have an odd number because the president shouldn't be voting. But you want people, if the president comes to the board with an ideal, you don't want everybody on that board to say yes, 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 yes. You want somebody that you want people to oppose sometimes, especially if it's a bad ideal. But if it's a bad ideal and everybody says yes, then it's going to be crap after that. So you definitely want a strong board that is very opinionated and willing to not be a yes man to the founder.
One of the things I'm starting to hear, David, is it almost seems like there's too many VSO organizations and nonprofits. In Massachusetts, I think there's close to 400 veterans nonprofits. And so the question I get asked a lot is like, oh my God, every time I turn around, there's either a new one popping up or someone asking me for money. And if I give money, then sure enough, within 6 months, I've got 10 other vets orgs lining up wanting money. And Travis, hey, they all say they're going to try to fight veteran suicide. When are we going to start seeing some of this actually, work? And it's a hard question to answer, but I certainly see where they come from. So
Yeah.
are we reaching a point where there's almost too many, or is it just that, people don't understand what it takes to actually serve veterans in a nonprofit way?
Well, I think it takes, I don't think there's too many.
Okay.
Because the 22 a day that they say is the number, it's more roughly like 44 a day. And the more nonprofits that we have, the more we can help the veterans. And the reason I say that is because your organization, let's say you had a 501c3, right? And you got 500 people that come out to your events and stuff like that. Well, out of those 500 people, a few of those people are not going to want to have your organization can't help them. And this is where a lot of nonprofits falter, is because if I come to your organization and you're not doing what needs to be done for me, and I want to go to another organization that I think will help me better, a lot of service organizations will get pissed off because that veteran left, and because they don't want to work. The VSOs don't want to work together, and that's where we need to, as veteran service organizations that are out there, you need to work together. So if Travis, if you have a veteran that thinks equine therapy would work better than going hiking, then you need to get on the phone, and call that service organization, say, hey, I got this veteran right here, I need you to talk to him, and get him on the phone. Because if you give that veteran that information, more than likely that veteran's not going to call that person. That's where veteran service organizations need to work together instead of getting pissed off because Joe Blow left their organization and went to this organization. So I don't think there's nearly enough veteran service organizations out there, because look how many veterans get out every year, service members that get out of the military. And we're talking about veterans from, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and each one of these veteran service organizations out there, a lot of them do the same mission. They focus on the 22 a day, well, 44 a day. And then there's other organizations out there that just is like a social club. And sometimes being in a social club is just as good as, going to a veteran service organization. You got your AMVETs, you got your American Legions, you got your VFWs. Those organizations are great for what they do for veterans. And a lot of the younger generation don't want to go to those type of establishments, because a lot of them focus on the bar aspect of things. And you know, there was a couple of VFWs here that had some new blood, younger generation come in and, you know, get on the board of the VFW. And then when they started trying to make change, the older generation of vets is like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on the cantina, and we're going to focus on the stuff that we've been doing. Well, that makes people that, you know, want to join not want to come. So I don't think we have enough.
How long have you been podcasting, David?
So let's see, February, April, May. So a year and 2 months.
Okay. So you have some shows, you have some connections you made, you've been able to see things before you started podcasting. And now that you started talking with other veteran service organizations about what they do, what's bad, what's good, what are some trends you can tell us about with those organizations that are succeeding and those that are maybe experiencing some challenges?
Um, let's see. So the ones that I've seen that are doing really well, is the organizations that love working with other organizations, and they do a lot of partnership with other organizations. You know, like I was talking about Nick Ron earlier with Warriors Next Adventure. He's a founder of Warriors Next Adventures, but he also helped. He's as the date when I last spoke to him, he has helped 27 other veterans start nonprofits. And one example was a guy down in Florida who loved fishing. This guy loved fishing, and he came to one of Nick's events, and they were talking, and he goes, "Well, you just need to start a nonprofit for fishing." And the guy's like, "Oh no, I can't do that. I can't do that." And then the guy goes back home to Florida, and about 2 weeks later, the guy's calling Nick on the phone. He goes, I already got my paperwork filed for my nonprofit for fishing. And this guy, he goes fishing every day. He's medically retired 100%, you know, 100% rating. So all of his fishing trips that he does, he'll bring a veteran with him to go on these trips, and he pays for everything out of his own pocket because he's already going fishing. So he's not asking anybody for money. He's using his own money that he's getting from the government to take people fishing. And so, you know, the ones that work together, those are the ones that are succeeding. The ones that are not working together, they have minimal success, but they haven't hit that pinnacle. And you know, it's all about building that camaraderie and building that network. You have to network. It's kind of like podcasting. You got to network in podcasting to be successful. And I think, you know, and you got to have your own little niche too as well. So, but the ones that are failing are the ones that are not willing to work with other service organizations.
You've been doing podcasting for a while now. And I say a while because most podcasts shut down after between 18 and 30, they shut down. So you're well on your way. What's it been like for you using your microphone, your voice to educate people about nonprofits, but also connect other VSOs with other nonprofits, so on and so forth? What's that been like for you, David?
So for me, it's very, very therapeutic. Like I said, my PTS and hypervigilance and anxiety, it for me, doing a podcast, it helps me minimize, because I know if I can reach one veteran today, then I did my mission. I succeeded my mission. And that's one of the catchphrases of my show is one veteran at a time. And for me, reaching out and seeing all these different organizations working together and building that network. And like I got triple threat vets out in Texas. They're four veterans, 3 Navy, 1 Army. You know, I reached out and we started talking, and I went out to Matt's house in Texas and went to the Houston rodeo and, you know, hung out with Matt, Ty, and Scott while I was out there with the wife. For me, that's very therapeutic. And when I was there, you know, I didn't feel like I was out of place. I didn't feel like I needed to have my head on a swivel. So for me, podcasting, using my voice and making that connections with all these different veteran service organizations out there. It's been very therapeutic, and I love it. And I'm in it for the long haul.
Nice, nice. What's next then, would you say, for your podcast and what you're trying to do?
So what's next for Homefront Sitrep? So as of right now, I'm in the process of getting my LLC for the podcast. In that aspect, I just signed with Heroes Media Group.
Adam Bird.
Mr. Adam Bird. I'm with HMG. Um, Adam does amazing things for a veteran. He's one of the OGs when it comes to veteran podcasting. He's one of the original. And I just joined Military United Podcast Streams as well, which you're part of.
Yep.
And we're working on a nonprofit for MUPS that's going to help support other veteran podcasters as well. So super excited about that. I'm working with Hero Stock, Mr. Jason Steiner.
Mr. Steiner, another Marine veteran.
Yes, working with him to get Hero Stock into Kentucky. As of right now, we have a tentative date of November 8th, which is hopefully I got a meeting with the mayor of Shepherdsville and the Bullitt County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm hoping everything goes good. I'm working on some sponsorships with Texas Roadhouse, Jim Beam, Carl Truman Law Office. So we're working on those. So I want to get into the media side of things and hosting, concerts for veterans. There used to be Kentuckiana Coalition for Heroes, which used to put on free concerts for veterans. Now that was comprised of a lot of different veteran ERGs from like Ford, KFC, and all these other different places, and they would put on free concerts for veterans in the Kentuckiana area. Well, that went away a few years back because people got promoted or left the job and nobody wanted to fill their spots. So I'm hoping with Hero Stock, we can start bringing that in here. And we have a lot of festivals in Kentucky. Like Louisville is known for like Louder Than Life and all these other big festivals. I'm hoping we can bring Hero Stock here to Kentucky and make it bigger than Louder Than Life. That's my plan. And like I said, I'm always going to be better tomorrow than I was today. And if I can get this up and running and make it, I'm going to make sure next year be better than this year. And then the year after is going to be bigger. I want to leave a legacy that continues on after I'm dead and gone. I don't care about me. I don't care about recognition or anything like that. I just want to leave a legacy of helping veterans, something that my kids can be proud of. Because like I said, they're both going in the military. I got one going in the Air Force and she wants to be an FBI agent. I got another one that's going in the Army. She wants to be a combat medic. And then she wants to be a high school history teacher after that. I just want to leave a legacy for them when I'm dead and gone. That's all I want.
How can people connect with your podcast and you and what Homefront Sitrep is all about, David?
So if you want to reach out to Homefront Sitrep, you can follow us on Facebook. We got a public page. We also have a private group. So if you go to Facebook, type in Homefront Sitrep, that'll pop up the private group that we have. Then if you type in Homefront Sitrep Podcast, that'll take you to the public page. We also have our YouTube channel at Homefront Sitrep. You can find me on MUPS, Military United Podcast Stream, or HMG, or you can email me at homefrontsitrep@gmail.com, or you can call me. Everybody's got my phone number, 502-435-3515.
You're a brave man. I think this is great. I've been doing Oscar Mike Radio now for a little while, and, I've seen, podcasts across all spectrums come and go. But it's always the ones that look to serve or add value to their audience, subject matter, the people that they come in contact with, that to me find what I consider true success. It's not the number of downloads or the number of engagements you get. It's the connection, and being together helps everybody move forward. So, listening to your other shows, and that you have this aspect of education, you have this aspect of raising awareness, and you have this aspect of collaboration. Really, it's unique to see, and so I really appreciate you sharing with me.
Well,
It's just great, man. It's just great. I can't wait to see what you do. I've been through Louisville several times. I was born in Evansville,
nice.
so yeah, Indiana. You ever try any brain sandwiches at Oktoberfest in Evansville?
No, I don't get up across the river very much.
Okay.
I used to go to Clarksville. My dad lived in Clarksville until he passed away back in August. Um, so, yeah, I don't get out very much outside of Kentucky anymore unless I do a spontaneous trip to Texas, or we do a cruise. The wife and we stay busy. I got a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Full throttle, baby.
Yeah, my oldest daughter, who's in archery, their season is one of the longest seasons in high school sports. And she's this weekend will be her last weekend of this season, and then next year will be her senior year. So we've had two proms, and I'm telling you, it's nonstop. My full-time job, unfortunately, I work from 7 a.m. to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, and I usually have weekends off, and I usually spend that with family. But no, I've never been up to and tried any sandwiches during Oktoberfest.
Just curious. Just curious. Well,
I'm gonna
David,
have to now, though.
well, when I get out to the Nashville, Evansville quarter, I will have to meet up, and you just have an open invitation to come back on Oscar Mike Radio and talk to me about what you do. And again, ladies and gentlemen, people do not understand how hard it is to start and keep a nonprofit going. There's so many pitfalls and landmines and, danger zones
Oh
in
yeah,
running a nonprofit. And we just scratched the surface here. But if you subscribe to this podcast and listen to it, you can apply the lessons you're going to learn from David in any kind of nonprofit. So I just want to thank you for coming on, David, sharing with us, and all the best, man, on your future endeavors.
well, thanks for having me, and I can't wait to have you on my show to talk about what you do with your military experience, and then what you do with your podcast and stuff as well. And I've been following you for a while, and I always meant to reach out with like you and Brian from Every Day's a Saturday, and I'm like, I need to reach out to these guys. They're both Marines. I need to reach out to them, and then other stuff would come up with guests coming on my show, and then finally I was like, let's do it. Let's just reach out. And that's what we did. And I'm glad we connected, and I can't wait to see where you and I both go from here. So
Absolutely. And that's the way it works. That's the best part about this whole thing. So very good. And I can't wait to be on your show and then the roundtable later this month.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, it's Travis Oscar Mike Radio. I'm with Marine Corps veteran, father, just nonprofit extraordinaire. It's always great to get to talk to these kind of people and have these kind of conversations. David, thank you so much for coming on. And as we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we are mission flight. We'll see you next time.
Remember on it teaches our mission. We care about it and we do it every day. But I think there are things that just hit you and give you a reason to go on. The theme for our 2024 for Reach Across America is Live with Purpose. It just seemed to fit in with the vows of the REAP, the 10 attributes that we feel represent our United States military. I thought, what a great opportunity to put those two things together and show our kids through how we act some of the things that can make their lives better, their communities better, and by doing that, the country better. For me, Live with Purpose, I think, it's a mindset. Set some guidelines and then go out and purposefully make life different, make a change. It's an opportunity to set an example.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinista One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.